you know what happens when it's the weekend. It must be Michael Snyder, and he's out there on the left coast of America. Hello, Michael.
Well, hello, Alex, and hi, everybody. It's Oscar weekend when we're recording this, so that's kind of a big fuss in Los Angeles, and traffic's going to be a bitch, and there'll be a lot of enthusiasm and Oscar viewing parties and people in tuxedos, but I don't care. I think award ceremonies in the arts are baloney. But of course, I will invoke an Oscar nomination when we discuss our movies that are opening this weekend. And in fact, we have 3 good ones. Wow, what a shocker this early in the year. Shall we get to things?
Absolutely.
Okay, let's start with Get Out. In Get Out, a young black man named Chris, played by Daniel Kaluuya, visits his white girlfriend Rose's well-to-do family, the mother, the father, and the brother, at their elegant country home for a weekend getaway from the city. Dad's a doctor, mom's a psychologist, and the girl's brother is a preppy asshole. So upscale is the word. But mom and dad are far from snooty. I mean, they're liberal types that welcome this kid, Chris, with open arms. So it's sort of the anti-guess who's coming to dinner when it comes to parents dealing with their daughter's interracial relationship. And then we meet the family's African-American housekeeper and gardener, who seem a little off. And that's when the scary stuff starts to happen. And if I tell you any more, I will get my critic's license revoked for spoiler violations. Anyway, this mix of horror, social comedy, and yes, also flat-out comedy, was written and directed by Jordan Peele of Key and Peele, formerly of In Living Color or Mad TV, whatever the show was. This guy got his start there, and so you expect whimsy and funny, but you hardly expect the masterful use of horror tropes and really good social commentary, and it actually has a really solid cast too. Rose, the girlfriend, is played by Allison Williams of Girls. Bradley Whitford and Catherine Keener play the dad and the mom, and they're pretty decent names. And this movie is shockingly clever and increasingly creepy, and again mordantly funny. It never fails to surprise and provoke, even as it toys with the conventions of horror movies, takes on the unfortunately still timely issue of race relations, and makes its points. Plus, it delivers a damn good time to boot. My advice, get in to Get Out. By the way, for all intents and purposes, I like the idea of supporting good films and suggesting that people see them in the theater, but this thing will also work at home. Okay, The Girl with All the Gifts. Now, do we really need another zombie apocalypse movie, or for that matter, zombie TV series? Well, when the results are as affecting and exciting and thoughtful as The Girl with All the Gifts, the answer is yes, or sure, or why not? This UK production suggests that a virus or disease-generating fungus has spread via contact with the bloodstreams of healthy people, creating a population of violent, mindless, living dead hungries. That's what they call them, because they desire flesh, especially the tasty human variety. But there are outposts of the uninfected, military troops trying to keep the peace and keep the still living population safe and fight the snarling hordes, etc. But basically the world is trashed. Meanwhile, children are being born, and they're being born with the infection and the cravings for flesh. But this second generation of kids under the fungus are capable of thinking and feeling in a normal way. And one of these kids, Melanie, is a young girl kept under lock and key at a UK army base. She's particularly bright and caring and clearly wants to do good despite the hunger she feels, making her a perfect subject for a ruthless and desperate biologist to use to find a cure to the plague. So Melanie attends classes with other second-generation kids, and her teacher bonds with her despite Melanie's barely controlled appetites. And when the base is attacked, the student, the teacher, the biologist, and an army sergeant are forced to go on the road together, and that's really when things get out of hand. So you have the lovely dystopian future. You have a fantastic cast. This is directed by Colin McCarthy and written by Mike Carey. And the kid who plays Melanie A young actress by the name of Senia Nanua is absolutely prescient, wonderful, sweet, creepy, all the things you want this child to be. And you got Gemma Arterton as the teacher who cares for the kid, Patty Considine as the sergeant, and almost chewing the scenery, Glenn Close as the driven biologist. I have to say, you know, 28 Days Later, maybe a better film about the zombie apocalypse from the UK, but this is actually pretty damn good. The girl with all the gifts gets the big thumbs up, and then, of course, a hungry gnaws it off. Okay, My Life as a Zucchini is a Swiss French stop motion animated feature. And it's Oscar nominated. And I think of the Oscar nominees for Best Animated Picture, there are two stop motion pictures. There are, of course, your obvious. There's a two-dimensional or hand-drawn one called The Red Turtle. You've got Zootopia, and you've got Moana from Disney, big CGI, computer animated things. And then you have Kubo and the Two Strings and My Life as a Zucchini, both in one way or another stop motion. I was blown away by My Life as a Zucchini. The actual title in French is Ma Vie de Courgette, because the kid's name or nickname is Courgette, or in English, Zucchini. I kind of like Courgette better. But anyway, he's a neglected, imaginative, working class kid, and he's orphaned by a very tragic accident and sent to a cross between an orphanage and a foster home, where he meets and must contend with a group of fellow orphans while they wait and hope to be adopted. A policeman who brings Courgette to the home is absolutely moved by the child, and the people who run the home are sweet and caring. So it's not one of those, you know, the authorities are monsters. But this is still not a home of the kid's own, and social services, despite their best intentions, can't take the place of a loving parent. Okay, so then he's got to get along with the other kids. He's hoping to be adopted. If this sounds like a bummer and an odd choice for an animated movie, be advised that it is actually adorable and inspiring and lovely and sad and hopeful. Are you ready? I actually wept a couple of times by the end of My Life as a Zucchini. This thing gets 3 tears on the Snyder cryometer. I did see it in French with French voice actors and subtitles. But the English language version, which is in theaters this weekend, features Will Forte as the cop. No, excuse me. Will Forte is one of the people running the orphanage. Nick Offerman is the cop. Ellen Page, Amy Sedaris. You know, so a couple of fairly talented people involved in this thing, and Will Forte. No, he's talented too. Anyway, I really recommend this movie. It's sweet. It's poignant. Directed by Claude Barras and written by Céline Sciamma, and definitely not your normal animated fare. So 3 terrific films opening this weekend. A couple other movies are getting released that I wasn't all that crazy about. Bitter Harvest, which is sort of a historical drama about the horror of Joseph Stalin's regime in the Ukraine during the 1930s. There's a romance going on between a young artist and his sweetheart, who he wants to save from this horrible program where they just starve people to death, and apparently millions of Ukrainians were killed. And so, you know, the artist gets away from prison and joins the resistance, and of course wants to get back with the woman. But it's very sort of soapy and kind of predictable and boilerplate for this kind of thing. It's a story that should be told. It needs to be told. It's directed and co-authored by George Mendeluk, and obviously the guy had all the best intents in the world. And, you know, again, we don't see this tale very often, so that's a good thing. But this is not a great film. Bitter Harvest is not the powerful, emotional thing it should be. I wish it was, and you know, ultimately I would say, you know, read a book about it. Wait for a better film, maybe. And finally, As You Are is all about growing up, 3 teens in the early 1990s. It's about their relationships, and we find them in the middle of a police investigation, and they've got to deal with their past and also the potential for some real trouble in the near future. And there are good performances here by the actors, particularly Owen Campbell, Amanda Stenberg, and Charlie Heaton. But it just didn't strike me as potent as it might have been. Directed and co-authored by Miles Joris Perafit, and it's a nice try. It may be early in this creator's and this filmmaker's career, and you get all the sort of period stuff, which is kind of cool, and you get the sexy stuff and the grunge rock and what have you, but it doesn't really have the dramatic impact again I want. So those two films that fall short, and then three movies that really knocked my socks off. So not a bad percentage on your typical weekend of film reviews. Have you watched anything lately yourself, Mr. Bennett?
No, not particularly. No. No.
Television stuff?
It's just the same stuff that I've talked about before, so.
You're riding that. I was profoundly moved by an episode of This Is Us called Memphis.
Yeah. It was terrific. It was terrific.
That show has it had every indication of being a slog about relationships and generations, and it has been note perfect for the most part. I'm really loving This Is Us, believe it or not.
Yeah. Great show, and I think everybody will agree with you. Any predictions on Oscars?
La La Land will unjustly get a bunch of awards. Even though I liked it, I did not think it was in the same realm as some of the great musicals of the past. Again, I've said this before.
But you can't compare it to that. You have to compare it to the other films that came out this year.
Exactly, and I still, to my mind, think that Manchester by the Sea is a better movie.
I disagree.
Well, we're going to see how it plays out. I believe those who love La La Land will be gratified, but I still feel like, again, a musical in 2017, great. But I felt it was like The Talking Dog, not so much that the dog talks or how well the dog talks, but that it talks at all.
I thought it was a very good film, dramatically and everything else.
It's sweet and it's very well directed. Damien Chazelle is a talent to be reckoned with, and it's lovely to look at.
Yeah.
And one terrific song. But I know I shouldn't, but I keep comparing it to some of the great musicals.
But you can't do that. To begin with, here's where it's grossly unfair. Okay?
I don't even mean like Gene Kelly.
Is that today, if you want to make a musical, you almost have to reinvent it because there's none of the talent out there or the people or the craftsmen who used to do endless numbers of musicals at MGM. Musicals are a lost art. You have to go back and reinvent it and find people who somehow know how to do this kind of thing. It's not an easy task in this.
No. Granted, I thought a better film that dealt that had a lot of songs in it. I won't call it necessarily a musical. Was Sing Street, and that did not get the recognition it deserved.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But that's me. There are other things. I mean, we could talk about this till the cows come home, but you know that I really have nothing but contempt for award ceremonies in the arts.
Well, I will tell you what the best film of the year was.
Moonlight.
No, that sucks.
Go ahead.
Hidden Figures.
Well, that's a terrific film. It's basically
I've seen it twice already.
It's a docudrama with great performances. I do believe that Taraji Henson got jobbed. She should have gotten a nomination for Best Actress.
She should have. But I mean, the point is, I think that was the best film of the year.
I'll go for Manchester by the Sea, but I also feel sort of what happened to movies like Sing Street and Everybody Wants Some, movies that I thought were really wonderful and got ignored, and A Bigger Splash, which maybe not to everyone's taste, but I think people should seek it out.
Never even heard of it.
It's about it's a wonderful film starring Ralph Fiennes, Tilda Swinton, Matthias Schoenaerts, and Dakota Fanning, who people probably don't think too highly of with these 50 Shades of Grey films, but she's ideally cast. It's about a rock star taking a break because her voice is shot, and she and her boyfriend are kind of vacationing on a Mediterranean island, and then her ex-boyfriend, who's a producer, shows up with nominally his daughter. And it's a film noir situation, sun-kissed Mediterranean setting, beautifully shot and really well directed. And Ralph Fiennes gives the best performance of the past 10 years of his career in A Bigger Splash. Tilda Swinton is great. But anyway, you can check me out on Twitter at Culture Blaster, and you can tune into the Michael Snyder's Culture Blast page, listen to myself and Alex and read stuff, and I'll be back next week, I hope.
Thank you very much, Michael, and there's more GABNet coming right up.